The rain began falling just as the funeral ended. Not a storm, not even a proper shower. Just a slow, steady drizzle that seemed determined to soak through every layer of clothing and every layer of grief. Ethan Carter stood beneath a black umbrella and watched as the last of the mourners drifted away from the cemetery. Their dark coats disappeared one by one among the rows of ancient gravestones. Then there was only silence. The silence felt wrong. For 32 years, his mother had filled every quiet corner of his life. Even after he moved away from their small town in northern England. Even after he became a successful architect in London. Even after weeks of chemotherapy had stolen her strength. She had always called. Every Sunday, without fail. Now there would be no more calls. No more reminders to eat properly. No more questions about whether he was sleeping enough. No more stories about neighbors he barely remembered. Nothing. The realization struck harder than the funeral itself. His mother wasn't just gone, she was becoming a memory, and that terrified him. The cemetery slowly emptied behind him. A hand touched his shoulder. Ethan. He turned. His Uncle Robert stood there with tired eyes. You should come home. Home. The word felt strange. The old family house had stopped feeling like home years ago. Now it felt even less familiar. I'll be there soon, Ethan said. Robert hesitated, then nodded. She loved you, you know. Ethan forced a smile. I know. But as his uncle walked away, guilt tightened around his chest, because during the final months, he hadn't visited enough. There had always been work. Deadlines. Meetings. Flights. Excuses. Now there would be no chance to make up for any of it. The house sat alone at the edge of the village. A narrow stone cottage, surrounded by bare winter trees. The same house where Ethan had grown up. The same house where every Christmas had happened. The same house where his mother had spent nearly her entire life. The front door creaked as he stepped inside. The familiar scent hit him immediately. Lavender, tea, old books, his mother's scent. For a moment, he almost expected her voice from the kitchen. Ethan, is that you? But the house remained silent. He stood motionless in the hallway. His throat burned. Then he climbed the stairs. Her bedroom door was still open. The bed was neatly made. Her reading glasses rested on the nightstand. A half-finished novel lay beside them. Everything looked normal, as if she had simply stepped outside for a walk. The illusion lasted only seconds. Then reality returned. She wasn't coming back. Ever. The following week passed in a blur. Paperwork. Legal documents. Condolences. People saying things they believed were comforting. She's in a better place. At least she's not suffering anymore. You'll heal with time. Ethan nodded politely every time. Inside he felt nothing. Or maybe too much. He couldn't tell. One evening, he sat alone in his London apartment staring at his phone. His mother's contact still existed. Mom. A simple photo accompanied it. She was smiling while holding a mug of tea. The picture had been taken 3 years earlier. Before the diagnosis. Before hospitals. Before fear. His thumb hovered over the screen. Delete contact. He couldn't do it. Instead, he locked the phone and tossed it onto the sofa. The apartment felt unusually cold. Outside, rain tapped against the windows. Inside, silence pressed against him from every direction. Eventually, exhaustion won. He fell asleep without turning off the lights. At exactly 2:13 a.m., his phone rang. The sound dragged him from sleep. He blinked, confused. The room was dark, except for the glow of the screen. One notification. Voicemail. Received. Ethan frowned. Nobody left voicemails anymore. Half awake, he unlocked the phone, then froze. His blood turned to ice. The voicemail came from one contact. Mom. He stared at the screen. His brain refused to process what he was seeing. That wasn't possible. The number had been disconnected after her death. He knew that. He had handled the paperwork himself. Yet there it was. A new voicemail. Received 30 seconds ago. His hands began trembling. Slowly he pressed play. Static crackled through the speaker. Several seconds passed. Then came a voice. Weak. Distant. Familiar. So familiar it stole the air from his lungs. Ethan. His heart stopped. It was her. His mother's voice. Exactly as he remembered it. Not similar. Not close. Her voice. "Ethan." Static swallowed the words. Then her voice returned, more urgent this time. "Don't sell the house." The recording distorted. A horrible burst of interference filled the speaker. Then silence. The voicemail ended. Ethan sat frozen. His pulse hammered in his ears. The screen displayed one simple message. Voicemail duration 0011. 11 seconds. Only 11 seconds. Yet those 11 seconds shattered everything he thought he understood. His mother was dead. Dead people did not leave voicemail messages. He replayed it. Again. And again. And again. Every time the same message. The same warning. Don't sell the house. By sunrise, Ethan had listened to the recording 37 times. And deep inside, beneath the fear and confusion, a terrible feeling had begun to grow. Because for the first time since the funeral, he remembered something. 3 days before she died, his mother had tried to tell him something. Something important. Something she never finished. At the time, he'd assumed it was the medication talking. Now he wasn't so sure. And somewhere in the darkness beyond his apartment window, a secret buried for 20 years was waiting to be uncovered. Ethan did not sleep. By sunrise, he had listened to the voicemail 43 times. Every replay felt exactly the same. The same static. The same trembling voice. The same warning. Don't sell the house. There were dozens of rational explanations. A technical glitch. An old recording somehow delayed. Someone imitating his mother. But deep down, Ethan knew something that terrified him. The voice was real. Not because it sounded like her, because it felt like her. Every pause, every breath, every tiny crack in her voice. It was his mother, and she had been trying to tell him something. By noon, he was driving north. The motorway stretched endlessly beneath gray skies as London slowly disappeared behind him. The farther he drove, the stronger a strange feeling became. It wasn't fear. Not exactly. It felt more like being pulled somewhere, as if the house itself was calling him home. The village looked unchanged. The same stone church, the same pub, the same narrow roads winding between old cottages. Time seemed frozen here. The house waited at the end of the lane, silent, watching. Ethan parked and stared at it for a long moment. For the first time since the funeral, he felt reluctant to enter. His mother's warning echoed inside his head. Don't sell the house. Why? The place was old, expensive to maintain. He barely visited. Selling it made perfect sense. Unless she knew something he didn't. He grabbed the keys and stepped inside. Immediately, the silence returned. The house felt different without her. Larger, colder, almost hollow. He wandered from room to room. Nothing seemed unusual. The kitchen remained exactly as she had left it. The old kettle still sat on the stove. Family photographs lined the shelves. One picture caught his attention. It showed him at 10 years old, standing between his parents. His mother smiled brightly. His father looked serious, as always. The photograph triggered an old memory. A strange one. He remembered an argument. Not the details. Only fragments. His mother crying. His father shouting. A door slamming. Then nothing. Ethan frowned. The memory felt incomplete, as though part of it had been cut away. He placed the frame down. His phone buzzed. His heart nearly stopped. Another voicemail. Same number. Same impossible caller. Mom. His hand shook as he pressed play. Static. Then her voice. Ethan. A long pause followed. This time she sounded frightened. If you're hearing this, more static. The recording crackled violently. Then came 5 words. Look beneath the old stairs. The voicemail ended. 7 seconds. That was all. Ethan stared at the screen. The old stairs. There was only one staircase in the house. The narrow wooden staircase leading to the 2nd floor. He turned toward the hallway. The staircase stood exactly where it always had. Nothing unusual. Nothing obvious. Yet his pulse quickened. Slowly he approached. The wood creaked beneath his feet. He examined every inch. Nothing. No hidden compartment, no loose panels, no secret doors. Just old wood worn, smoothed by decades of use. He almost gave up. Then he noticed something strange. A section of molding near the bottom step looked newer than the rest. The paint matched perfectly. But the wood underneath was different, recently replaced. His mother had never renovated anything. She hated spending money. Why replace one small piece? Kneeling down, Ethan pressed against it. Nothing happened. He pressed harder. A faint click echoed inside the wall. The molding shifted. His breath caught. The panel swung inward. Behind it sat a small metal box. Dust covered everything except the box, meaning someone had accessed it relatively recently. His mother. Ethan carefully pulled it free. The lock wasn't secured. Inside lay several yellowed envelopes, a silver pocket watch, and a stack of photographs. He opened the first envelope. His stomach dropped. The documents were police reports, dated 20 years earlier, the year his father died. Ethan sat on the floor and began reading. The official story had always been simple. His father died in a car accident during a rainstorm. A tragic but ordinary event. The reports told a different story. There had been no accident, at least not initially. According to the investigation, witnesses reported hearing gunshots before the vehicle crashed. Gunshots. Ethan reread the line 3 times. His hands became cold. That couldn't be right. His mother would have told him. Wouldn't she? He opened another file. More witness statements. More inconsistencies. Missing evidence. Unanswered questions. Eventually the investigation had been closed. Insufficient proof. Case unresolved. Ethan's heart hammered. His entire childhood had been built on a lie. His father hadn't simply died. Something had happened. Something serious enough for his mother to hide it for 2 decades. Why? A photograph slipped from the stack and landed on the floor. Ethan picked it up. The image showed his father standing beside another man. Both appeared to be in their 30s. The photo had clearly been taken shortly before his father's death. The stranger wore a dark coat and stared directly into the camera. Something about him felt unsettling. On the back of the photograph, his mother's handwriting appeared. 3 words. Don't trust Henry. Ethan frowned. Henry. The name meant nothing, yet seeing it sent an inexplicable chill through him. He searched the rest of the box. Every clue pointed toward the same mystery. His father had been involved in something dangerous, something his mother spent years concealing. As evening approached, rain began falling outside. The house darkened. Shadows stretched across the walls. Ethan sat at the kitchen table surrounded by documents. Questions multiplied faster than answers. Eventually, exhaustion overcame him. For the first time in years, he decided to sleep in his childhood bedroom. The room remained mostly unchanged. Old books lined the shelves. Football posters still hung on the walls. A frozen snapshot of another life. He lay in bed listening to rain tap against the windows. Sleep arrived slowly. When it finally came, it brought dreams. Strange dreams. He stood inside the house as a child. His mother knelt before him. Tears streamed down her face. Promise me something. Young Ethan nodded. What is it? She glanced toward the hallway, terrified, as though someone might hear. If anything ever happens to me. The dream shifted. The house shook violently. Darkness swallowed everything. Then came a loud crash. Ethan woke abruptly. His heart raced. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. The room sat in darkness. Rain continued outside. Then he heard it again. A crash. Downstairs. Someone was inside the house. Ethan froze. Every muscle tightened. Another sound followed. A door opening. Slowly, deliberately. His pulse thundered. The village was tiny. Nobody should be here. Especially not in the middle of the night. He slipped out of bed and grabbed the heavy flashlight from his nightstand. The hallway beyond his room was pitch black. The staircase disappeared into darkness below. Then, he saw it. A faint beam of light moving through the first floor. Someone was searching the house. Ethan's breathing became shallow. The light drifted across the living room. Paused. Then moved again. Whoever it was knew exactly where they were going. They weren't stealing valuables. They were looking for something. Or someone. The realization struck him instantly. The box. The hidden compartment. Someone knew about it. The floorboard beneath Ethan's foot creaked. The light downstairs stopped moving. Silence filled the house. A horrible silence. Then a voice emerged from below. Calm. Male. Older. Ethan. Every hair on his body stood up. The stranger knew his name. "Ethan," the voice called again. "We need to talk." Lightning flashed outside. For a split second, bright white light filled the stairwell, and Ethan saw a figure standing at the bottom of the stairs, watching him, waiting. Then darkness returned, and before Ethan could move, his phone vibrated inside his pocket. Another voicemail had arrived, from his mother, at exactly 2:13 a.m., the same time as before, the same impossible number. And somehow, Ethan already knew this message would change everything. Ethan stood frozen at the top of the stairs. His phone vibrated in his pocket like a living thing. Down below, the man remained motionless in the darkness. "Ethan," the voice called again. "I don't want to hurt you." That made Ethan even more afraid. People who didn't want to hurt you usually didn't break into your dead mother's house at 2 in the morning. His fingers closed around the flashlight. "Who are you?" he shouted. A pause. Then the man answered. "My name is Henry." The name struck Ethan like a physical blow. Don't trust Henry. His mother's handwriting flashed in his mind. The photograph, the warning, the old police reports, the hidden box. Everything narrowed into one terrible point. Henry. The man from the photograph was standing inside the house, 20 years older now, but alive, and here. Ethan slowly pulled out his phone. The voicemail notification glowed on the screen. "Mom." His thumb shook as he pressed play. Static filled the hallway. Then came his mother's voice. Weak, broken, but urgent. "Ethan, listen to me carefully." The man downstairs took one step forward. Ethan backed away. His mother's voice continued. "Henry killed your father." The hallway seemed to tilt beneath him. For a second, Ethan forgot how to breathe. "No," Henry said from below, his voice suddenly sharp. "That's not true." The voicemail crackled. He came back for the pocket watch. "Don't give it to him." The message ended. Silence swallowed the house. Ethan's hand moved instinctively to his jacket pocket. The silver pocket watch was there. He had taken it from the box without even realizing why. Henry looked up at him. Even in the dark, Ethan could feel the man's eyes. "Your mother was sick," Henry said. She was confused near the end. Ethan laughed once, but it came out almost like a sob. "Then why are you here?" Henry didn't answer immediately. Rain battered the windows. The old house groaned around them. "Because that watch belongs to me." Ethan's fear began turning into anger. "You broke into my house for a watch." "It isn't just a watch." Henry stepped into a patch of moonlight. He was older than in the photograph, but the shape of his face was the same. Thin lips, cold eyes. A face Ethan had never known, yet somehow had been haunted by all his life. "Your father stole something from me," Henry said. "Something that ruined my life. My father is dead. Because he made mistakes." Ethan gripped the banister. "No, because you killed him." Henry's expression changed. Only slightly, but enough. There it was. Not guilt. Not grief. Recognition. Ethan felt sick. For 20 years, his mother had carried this truth alone. For 20 years, she had looked at her son across breakfast tables, birthdays, Christmas mornings, and hospital beds, knowing the world had lied to him, and she had stayed silent. Not because she didn't trust him, because she was protecting him. Henry began climbing the stairs. Slowly. "Ethan, give me the watch." Ethan turned and ran. He rushed into his childhood bedroom and slammed the door shut behind him. The lock was old. Useless. He shoved a chair beneath the handle. His breath came fast. The pocket watch felt heavy in his hand. He opened it. Inside was an old photograph. Tiny, faded. His parents, younger, smiling. Behind the photograph, tucked into the metal casing, was something folded so tightly it almost looked like part of the watch itself. A strip of paper. Ethan pulled it free with trembling fingers. It was not a letter. It was a bank receipt. And written across the back in his father's handwriting were several names, dates, and amounts. Payments. Bribes. One name appeared again and again. Henry Vale. Ethan stared at it. His father had found proof. Proof of something criminal. Maybe fraud, maybe worse. And Henry had killed him for it. The bedroom door shook. Ethan Henry shouted. The chair scraped across the floor. Ethan backed toward the window. His phone rang again. Not a voicemail this time. A call. Mom. He stared at the screen through tears. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Still, he answered. Static hissed. Then a voice whispered, "Under your bed." His mother's voice. Not recorded. Not distant. Present. "Ethan, under your bed." The call ended. The door shook again. The chair was slipping. Ethan dropped to his knees and reached under the bed. His fingers brushed dust. Old books. A wooden box. He dragged it out. It was small and painted blue, the same color his mother had painted his room when he was a child. Inside was an envelope. His name was written on it. "For Ethan when he is ready." The door burst open. Henry entered. Ethan grabbed the envelope and stood. Henry saw it immediately. His face hardened. "Give me that." Ethan stepped back. "No." Henry lunged. Ethan threw the bedside lamp at him. It struck Henry's shoulder, giving Ethan just enough time to slip past him and run. He thundered down the stairs. Behind him, Henry cursed and followed. Ethan reached the kitchen, grabbed the landline phone, and dialed emergency services with shaking hands. Henry appeared in the doorway before Ethan could speak. They stared at each other across the kitchen. For one long second, neither moved. Then Henry saw the phone in Ethan's hand. His face twisted. Ethan ran for the back door. Henry grabbed his coat. The two men crashed against the kitchen table. Documents scattered everywhere. The police reports. The photographs. His mother's secret life of fear. Ethan swung blindly. His fist connected with Henry's jaw. Henry staggered. Ethan tore free, opened the back door, and ran into the rain. The garden was black and slick with mud. Behind him, Henry shouted his name. Ethan didn't stop. He ran toward the old stone shed at the edge of the property. As a child, he had hidden there during storms. His mother always knew where to find him. He reached it, slammed the door, and locked it from inside. Only then did he open the envelope. There were several pages. His mother's handwriting. Careful. Familiar. The first line broke him. "My darling Ethan, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and I am so sorry." His vision blurred. He wiped his eyes and continued. She explained everything. His father, Thomas Carter, had worked with Henry Vale many years earlier. They had been partners in a property business, buying old homes, restoring them, selling them to wealthy families from London. At first it had been honest work. Then Henry began laundering money through the company. Thomas discovered it. He planned to report him. Henry begged him not to, then threatened him. Then, on a rain-soaked night 20 years ago, Thomas left the house with the evidence hidden inside the pocket watch. He never came home. The police suspected foul play, but Henry had friends, money, and enough influence to bury the case. Ethan's mother knew, but she had a 6-year-old son, and Henry had warned her. If she spoke, Ethan would disappear next. So she stayed quiet. She hid the evidence. She lived with fear, and she spent the rest of her life waiting for the day Ethan would be old enough, strong enough, and safe enough to know the truth. The final paragraph was almost unbearable. "I wanted to tell you before I died. I tried, but I was afraid the truth would leave you with hatred instead of peace. I have loved you through every silence, every lie, every lonely year. Please forgive me, and please, my sweet boy, do not sell the house until your father comes home." Ethan covered his mouth. "Your father comes home." At first he didn't understand. Then he looked beneath the folded pages. There was a map. A simple hand-drawn map of the garden. A red mark had been placed near the old oak tree behind the shed. Ethan's blood went cold. The shed door rattled. Henry had found him. "Ethan," Henry said from outside, breathing hard. "Open the door." Ethan folded the letter and placed it inside his jacket. Then he looked around the shed. An old shovel leaned in the corner. He grabbed it. Henry kicked the door. Once. Twice. On the third kick, the lock splintered. The door flew open. Henry rushed in. Ethan swung the shovel with everything he had. It struck Henry across the side of the head. The man collapsed heavily onto the floor. For a moment, Ethan thought he had killed him. Then Henry groaned. Alive. Ethan stumbled back into the rain, clutching the shovel. He ran to the old oak tree. The ground there was softer than the rest. He began digging. Rain soaked his hair. Mud covered his hands. Every breath burned. Minutes passed. Then the shovel hit something solid. Wood. Ethan dropped to his knees and cleared away the mud. A small wooden chest lay beneath the roots. Inside were bones. and a wedding ring. His father's wedding ring. Ethan broke. He did not scream. He simply collapsed beside the grave and wept like the child he had been when everything was taken from him. Police lights appeared at the end of the lane 20 minutes later. Henry was arrested before dawn. The evidence inside the pocket watch, the letter, the buried remains, and Henry's own panicked words were enough to reopen everything. Ethan answered questions until his voice failed. By morning, the rain had stopped. The world looked washed and pale. He stood alone in the kitchen as officers moved through the house. His mother's phone number was still on his screen. No missed calls. No voicemails. The messages were gone. All of them. As if they had never existed. Only one remained. The final voicemail. Received at 5:17 a.m. Ethan pressed play. There was no static this time. Only silence. Then his mother's voice. Soft. Peaceful. My brave boy. Ethan covered his mouth. You found him. A pause. Then she said the words he had wanted to hear since the funeral. Your father and I can rest now. The recording crackled gently. And Ethan, I was always proud of you. He began to cry again. I love you, Mum, he whispered. The voicemail continued for one final second. I know. Then it ended. The screen went black. Ethan never sold the house. Months later, he restored it. Not to erase the past, but to honor it. He kept his mother's books on the shelves, his father's pocket watch on the mantle, and every Sunday morning he made tea in the old kitchen, opened the windows, and let the quiet in. The silence no longer frightened him, because it did not feel empty anymore. It felt full, full of everything that had been lost, everything that had been protected, and everything love had somehow carried beyond death.